Good day, ma'am. I am Evelyn Carion na naatasan na mag-report tungkol sa instructional games. So, ano nga ba ang instructional games? Ito ay tatalakayin natin. Bago ako magsimula ang objectives ng aking report, unang-una ay define instructional games, pangalawa is give the benefits and limitation of using instructional games as a learning tools, design own instructional games, and evaluate the relevance of using instructional games as a learning tool in the digital age. Ang instructional games ay nagbibigay ng pagkakataon sa mga estudyante na matuto sa pamamagitan ng paglalaro na kadalasang mas engaging at enjoyable kaysa sa traditional na lectures or activities. Ito ay nakakapagdulot ng mas mataas na antas ng motibasyon sa pag-aaral. Sa pamamagitan ng mga laro at activities, ang mga estudyante ay aktibo nakikilahok at nag-aaral sa kanilang sariling paraan. Ito ay nagpapalakas ang kanilang pag-unawa at retensyon ng mga konsepto o information. Ang instructional games ay isang dahilan or isang way upang makamit ng mga estudyante ang kanilang critical thinking skills at problem solving skills sa loob ng isang collaborative or interactive na environment. Ang instructional games ay nakatutulong sa mga estudyante upang mabuo dito ang kanilang pakikipagtulungan, collaborate, pakikipag-interaction upang maresolbahan ang mga challenges sa kanilang mga activity. Ito ay nagbibigay ng mga pagsasanay sa kanilang teamwork at communication skills.
The objective of charades is to use gestures alone to get your team to guess more words or phrases than the other team. To begin, divide players into 2 even teams and have the teams go to 2 different sides of the room. Every player should secretly write a common word or phrase on a folded slip of paper. Traditionally, words or phrases are from the categories of book titles, song titles, movies, TV shows, plays, or well-known quotes and phrases. Then the teams get back together and give the papers to the opposite team to draw at random. Select which team and player will go first and set a time limit for each round. Once the time starts, the starting player must draw a slip to act out. Try to come up with a system of conveying information without words to help your team narrow down guesses. For example, the number of fingers held up at the start of a turn can indicate the total number of words. By unfolding your hands, you could indicate that a phrase is a book title. If your team guesses the answer before the time runs out for the round, you get a point. Otherwise, no points are awarded. Once the time runs out, the other team chooses a person to act out a slip of paper, and the time resets. Play continues with players rotating who is acting until all the ideas are used up. The winner is the team with the most points.
Charades. Sa larong charades, kailangan ng mga estudyante na magpakita ng kanilang creativity at imagination sa pamamagitan ng paggamit ng gesture o iba't ibang kilos upang ipahayag ang kanilang pinapahulak sa kanilang mga classmates.
To play hangman, you'll need at least 2 players. First, one player comes up with a word or phrase for the puzzle. That player draws a dash for each letter in the puzzle, leaving a space between words. Then draws the gallows above the dashes. Now, the other player guesses letters one at a time that they think are in the secret word or phrase. If they guess right, the player who made the puzzle writes in the letter over any corresponding dashes. If they guess wrong, the player who made the puzzle draws a head hanging off of the gallows and writes down the incorrect letter for the guessing player to use as a reference. Each time the guessing player chooses a wrong letter, a new body part is added to the hangman. The hangman should consist of a head, a body, 2 arms, and 2 legs. If the guessing player correctly guesses the puzzle or fills in all of the letters before the hangman is complete, they win. If they don't, the player who came up with the puzzle wins. Once a player wins, switch roles so that the guessing player from the previous round is now the player coming up with the puzzle.
Hangman. Sa larong hangman, ang mga estudyante ay inaanyayahan na mag-isip at mag-analyze sa mga clues upang masunod ang tamang sagot. Sa ganitong paraan, sila ay nakakapag-develop ng kanilang critical thinking skills at problem-solving skills. Nakatutulong ito sa pagpapabuti ng kanilang vocabulary at spelling skills ng mga mag-aaral dahil kailangan nilang manghula ng tamang salita batay sa mga letters na ibinibigay.
Scattergories is a fun 2 to 6 player game where players try to score points by listing words that start with the same letter in a specific category. To start the game, give each player a pile of category cards and a score sheet which has 3 columns on it, one for each round of the game. Choose one category card to start with, and have each player put that card on top of their pile face up. Then, roll the 20-sided letter die and start the 3-minute timer. Players then begin filling in their answer sheet with words that fit the chosen category and start with the letter rolled on the die. For example, if the letter on the die is C and the category is places, players could write Chicago, Congo, Charlotte, and so on. The articles a, an, and the do not count towards the letter requirement, and multi-word answers count if the first letter in the first word matches the letter on the die. When using proper names, you are allowed to place the last name first. For example, if the category is historical figures, and the letter is W, an answer of Washington, George would be acceptable. Creative answers also count. For example, if the category is sandwiches, then knuckle would be acceptable. Once the timer runs out, players stop writing and take turns reading their list of words. If any players disagree with another player's answer, they can challenge it. And each player votes on whether the answer in question is acceptable or not. If the majority of players vote against it, or if the vote is a tie, the word is rejected. If any players come up with identical answers, every player that wrote that answer down crosses it off of their sheet. Once every player has read their answers, each player circles every answer that isn't crossed out. Players get 1 point for each circled answer. Each player jots down the total number of points for the round at the top of that column. Then, the second round begins. Use the same category card, but reset the timer and roll the die to get a new letter. If you roll the same letter as the previous round, re-roll the die. The player with the most points at the end of 3 rounds is the winner.
Scattergories. Sa larong Scattergories, ang mga estudyante ay inaanyayahang makipagtulungan bilang isang team upang makagawa ng mga listahan ng mga salita batay sa ibinigay na kategory. Ito ay nagpapakita ng kanilang teamwork at collaboration skills. Bingo. Ang larong bingo ay hinihikayat ang mga estudyante na gamitin at palawakin ang kanilang bokabularyo. Ito ay nakatutulong sa kanilang pag-unlad ng pagbabasa, pagsusulat, at pangangahulugan ng mga bagong salita. Puzzle. Ang larong puzzle ay nagbibigay ng pagsasanay sa pag-iisip ng bawat mag-aaral. Kinakailangan ng mga mag-aaral na mag-isip ng mga estratehiya at solusyon upang malutas ang mga problema o puzzle sa loob ng isang laro. Draw swords. Ang draw swords ay nagtuturo sa mga mag-aaral na mag-analyze, magnilay-nilay, at gumawa ng mga desisyon sa limitadong panahon. Ito ay nagbibigay ng pagsasanay sa kanilang kritikal na pag-iisip at pisikal na kasanayan.
Hot potato! Here we go!
Hot potato. Ang larong hot potato ay nakatutulong sa bawat mag-aaral na makabuo ng isang samahan at pagkakaisa sa pagitan ng mga classmates. Ito ay nagbibigay ng positibong karanasan at kasiyahan sa kanilang pag-aaral at pakikisa sa grupong kanilang kinabibilangan.
Pictionary is a fun game where players try to guess what other players are drawing. To play Pictionary, first split up into 2 teams with at least 2 players on each team. Each team selects a game piece and places it on the start square. Then, each team selects one member to be the artist for the first round. The artist on one team draws a card and shows it to all of the other artists. Then, the timer is flipped over and each artist begins drawing the word from the card. As they're drawing, players on their team try to guess what it is out loud. The first team to guess correctly rolls the die and moves their token that many squares. Then, that team chooses a new artist, and the artist pulls a new card. The color of the square that the team is on determines which word on the card the artist must draw. The timer is flipped over, and the new artist begins drawing. Only the playing team is allowed to guess what the word is this time. If the team guesses correctly before the time runs out, they roll again and repeat the process with a new artist. If the team doesn't guess correctly, the turn passes clockwise to the next team. Whenever a player lands on a square with the 4-pencil all symbol next to it, each team has an opportunity to draw and guess the word. The first team to guess gets to roll a die, move their piece, and continue playing. The first team to make it to the end of the board wins. To play Pictionary without the board, each team takes turns separately. The opposing team comes up with something to draw and writes it down on a piece of scrap paper. The team that is drawing selects an artist, and the opposing team gives them the word. The artist has 60 seconds to draw it out while their team guesses. If the team can correctly guess what the drawing is within 60 seconds, they get 1 point. Then, the next team goes, and the team that just went writes the word down. Play until a team reaches 5 or 10 points, depending on how long you want the game to be.
Pictionary. Ang larong Pictionary ay kailangan ng mga mag-aaral na magkomunikasyon at magtulungan upang maipahayag ang kanilang mga ideya. Ito ay nakatutulong sa pagpapaunlad ng kanilang kakayahan sa pakikipag-usap at pakikipagtulungan. Ang instructional material ay hindi lamang laro. Ito ay hindi lamang nagbibigay ng entertainment at aliw, kundi mahalaga rin sa pag-unlad ng mga kasanayan at katangian ng isang estudyante tulad ng komunikasyon, pag-iisip, bokabularyo, kritikal na pag-iisip at samahan at maraming pang iba. Sa kabuuan ng Instructional Games, ito ay nagagamit sa loob ng paaralan at hindi lamang nagbibigay ng oportunidad para sa masaya at engaging na pag-aaral, kundi nagtataguyod din ng active learning, critical thinking, collaboration at iba pang mahalagang kasanayan na mahalaga sa pag-unlad ng mga estudyante.